We have so many things, but let's get right to it. Wisconsin just dispatches Penn State.
Yeah,
That's the key match from last week, right?
100%. And I was calling a match during this, so I didn't get to watch live, but I was following the stats and I ended up watching back yesterday. I could not believe this. I mean, our match was about to start and I was like, guys, they won 26-24, which wasn't that crazy. But then 25-12, 25-13. I mean, they were completely unstoppable. They hit nearly 500 compared to Penn State, who just couldn't get anything together. And to be honest, the craziest part to me was Penn State didn't have one block, which tells you just how good Wisconsin's offense was run. And also the difference to me from watching that match to thinking back to Wisconsin's match against Nebraska. I thought, to be honest, Charlie Furbringer looked like a deer in headlights. I think she was like, this is crazy. This environment's wild. I don't really know what's happening. She couldn't get the offense to click that night. And it was so cool to see night and day from the match against Nebraska until this match against Penn State in the same kind of environment, in the same level of caliber match, and just be so, so good. And that was really fun to see from a freshman setter.
Well, it's another example of we've talked about all these great matchups and how they end up in sweeps.
Every one of them.
No, I know, but I was surprised it didn't reflect in either our voting or the AVCA poll. So in our poll today, we go Pittsburgh, Nebraska, Louisville, Creighton, Penn State, Wisconsin. And it just seems paradoxical that you wouldn't have Wisconsin over Penn State right there.
I mean, I still had Penn State at third, to be honest. And I
And
know,
I still have Creighton at third.
yeah, and to be fair, I think to everyone right now, it's like, okay, Pittsburgh, Nebraska, obviously at the top. And then there's a lot of teams between Louisville, Creighton, Penn State, Wisconsin, and honestly Stanford that you could have in that 3 to 7 range. And I think thinking about the end of the season, what it's going to take to get one of those top 4 seeds, because obviously those are so coveted. You get to host through the first 4 rounds of the NCAA tournament, through regionals up to the semifinals. And I do not want to be the committee right now because those are going to have to be really difficult conversations and comparisons. And so many of those teams have played each other, but to be honest, I could see it ending up where a team has a head-to-head and ends up in over another team just because of how well they do at the end of the season and just overall resume, which is crazy to think about.
So many things last week. One that makes me sad, Julia Cardona, the
I
outside
know.
of Evansville, broke her finger in practice,
Yeah.
and she still leads the NCAA in kills with 549. Kaylin Alexander from Hawaii. If you haven't stayed up late to watch Hawaii, they're good. She's fabulous, but she's at 514. She'll catch her, of course. And then Kiana Cruz of Western Illinois. Who knew? In third place with 478 kills. But there's a
Nice.
couple other people poised to make a charge, and they're going to get more matches. I mean, somebody like Western Illinois is not going to go deep into December. So there are some people behind there who will. But I was sad that she broke her finger, and the other one was the Jackrabbits. South Dakota State lost.
That
Came
was a
back and won right.
bummer.
Yeah, came back and won right away. And um, just a couple other quick notes. So I was watching Western Kentucky again, and Jenna Otek had the clipboard, and she was
You still
proud.
back out
Travis Hudson told me that he had surgery 9 days ago, and he's
there?
not allowed to fly for 2 weeks because of the threat of blood clots and stuff. And for
Whoa.
those of you just catching up, Travis hurt himself, uh, basically blew out his knee playing volleyball, and his assistant Craig Berry then tore his Achilles in the same volleyball match, and neither one of them was on the road. So that's just too bad.
Uh, I
Um,
want to give
and
one more sad injury shout out during my Oregon Minnesota match the other night. Oregon had to switch to a 6-2 because they had actually had some already injured players, but then their opposite who was filling in, Sophie Gregoire, went down with we didn't even replay it on the broadcast because it was gross, but
it was that,
it's
huh?
a gross ankle injury, and it was so tough to see for a team that was just rolling up to that point. And they continued to end up sweeping Minnesota, and I mean they looked really good, but it was such a bummer for a team that already had players out. And I talked to Oni Afebu, their middle and head coach Matt Ulmer after, and they were just really impressed with their team's ability to kind of rally and kind of just regroup after your teammate goes down. I mean, I think that's something we don't talk about enough, where during matches when someone gets hurt, it's not just the player. Obviously, yes, you're very sad for them and it's upsetting, but as a team, it's really hard to like rally back and to get your composure, especially if it's something gross and your teammates crying in pain. They have to like carry them off. It's really rattling in that kind of environment. And I just wanted to shout out Oregon for kind of collecting themselves and coming back to end up taking that set because it was really impressive after a gross injury.
Yeah, I talked to Matt Ulmer today about something else, and but he said, it's a tough time of year right now. We're pretty nicked
Yeah.
up. And, they have injuries, and they've got a couple of key matches coming up this week. But
Yeah.
yeah, as I take a run through some of last week's, there's still reverse sweeps. The days that there are no reverse sweeps, and like there was one, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, you know, but Kalen Alexander had 36 kills in a loss last week. A kid named Tori Hester from Troy had 33 kills and then had another 30 kill match last week, which
My gosh.
I haven't. Um, but among the others, um, James Madison's Brenya Reed, 29 kills, 2 aces, 8 digs, 2 blocks, and so many huge numbers.
Yeah.
Um, this is not when I'm at home, and obviously for those of you watching, you can see I got the blurred hotel room background. I have a I have 2 big computers at home, and it's easier to have all of these other windows up. On a laptop, it's a little more difficult. How about Kansas going 0 for Arizona, losing at Arizona
Yeah.
State and then Arizona, and Jordan Wilson from Arizona, 37 kills. And I mean, it was way more than she'd ever had before.
I
And
mean, insanity.
yes,
And
that's
for a
they,
Kansas team that I know in our poll dropped 6 spots, which is pretty crazy. I mean, but to
yes,
be fair, like this is a team that had only one loss up to that point, and to be honest, they were kind of held in the top 10 because they didn't have many losses, and it's hard to keep those kind of teams out. They also took down Purdue earlier in the season and beat Utah, but then you added 2 losses there. Arizona State, good loss, fine, but losing to Arizona, I mean, now it's kind of like, okay, does Kansas deserve to be up there? Obviously, they're still, somewhere around the top 10 range, but they had a tough week.
they're 12 in the AP AVCA poll and dropped 4 spots. And last week in our comments section, one of our pollsters, Mick Haley, the former Olympic coach, Texas coach, and USC coach, put forth that he didn't know, wasn't convinced that they were a top 16 team.
Yeah,
Kansas said that. And at the
I think
time, I was like, ooh, that's a little harsh. But
I mean, there are teams that also just again, I've watched Kansas twice this season. They were early on, but like, does a team pass the eye test? Not particularly, but you can't keep them out just because of that. They still had to win over Purdue. They had to win over Utah on a one-loss team. Like that's a pretty decent resume. But obviously, we learned a lot about them and their ability to kind of bounce back and handle pressure, and just didn't happen.
Arizona State's legit too. Boy,
They're
they're playing.
so good.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, their offense is like from the time it's in the setter's hands to the hitters, it's like it is crazy. It's lightning fast. They're so fun to watch. To be honest, I think that team has the pieces to where like I wouldn't be surprised to see them in a Final Four. They're really,
Yeah.
really good. They're Libera, Mary Stroll. I mean, they're incredible.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. So I mentioned Tori Hester. She was feasting on our friend Jenny Hazelwood's Southern Miss team.
No.
She had 33 kills that one night and then 31 the next. She loves going to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Tori Hester does. Um, Drake's Macy Daufelt had 32 kills at against Valpo, and she took 78 swings. I love going back and looking at some of these. But Saturday, uh, Larry Hamill was kind enough to fill in for me, and I get totally lost when I don't get to write the roundup. What other big matches did I miss from Saturday and Sunday that um,
I mean, I had Oregon, Minnesota, and that was, well, obviously Penn State, Wisconsin. Those are kind of the bigger ones. But to be honest, I mean, I still have them in my top 16. I feel like you probably maybe didn't, but they're
oh,
border.
I had him 16.
Okay, that's
I
where I
thought,
had them too. I think it's a
but
team that it's tough to turn your head away from when you have a win over Wisconsin and a win over Texas. Like that automatically bumps you into that category, even if you have 8 losses,
but
which sounds crazy to keep them in. But to me, I think they're a team with a really high ceiling, but I think they can also lose to anyone.
Confounding losses, some of them. And yeah,
I mean, the Washington one, like, it's like Washington's a good team, so it's fair. I mean, but they got manhandled by Oregon. They played horribly and just allowed a lot of things to happen that they hadn't all season. And also for a Minnesota team that, like, talking to them during practice and watching them, they seem so dialed. So I don't know. You never know what happens when you step on the court. But I was really shocked by Oregon just completely handling them. And Minnesota right now, I mean, they are barely hanging on to a top 16 seed. And to be honest, like, I don't know if I'm the committee right now. I feel like they tend to go, it seems like they weigh losses a little bit heavier. So I feel like if the committee came out with something right now, to me, it seems like they probably wouldn't have them in it. But it's also Minnesota and the name plays into it. I mean, they say it doesn't, but it's nice to host
well, I
2 rounds
hope
there.
I hope Dayton doesn't get messed over when it
Oh
comes.
yeah,
They've got to be just
they
got to.
have to. They have to.
So we had Jeremy White, the coach from Southeastern Louisiana, easy for me to say, Louisiana there. They're up to 22 matches in a row. Second longest streak in the country.
To Nebraska.
Exactly. At 21. Western Kentucky's won 19. Dayton has won 19. Creighton has won 16. Creighton, so we talked a little bit while they were playing Marquette. Creighton basically wrapped up the Big East with still 4 matches to go, but by beating Marquette again. Nora Sis is so good. Marquette's a good team. She, Ava Martin, Kendra White, and the libero who came from Penn State.
Villanova.
Yes, that's a fabulous foursome, and they've got a couple other. They're so good. I would have, I've been voting them number 3 the whole time.
Yeah.
So good. But Nora Sis, oh my gosh, she's just wonderful.
I mean, I think that team is so fun to watch too because they're so easy to root for. Like, I mean, you mentioned a few of those players, but they're fun to watch. I think they're not necessarily going up against powerhouses right now that make you want to root against them. But I mean, I love that team. Also, Elise Getzinger was one player that I think between her and Villanovic have kind of transformed that team. Obviously, yes, you have Kendra Waite, you have Nora Sis, 2 incredible names that deserve to be, first, second team All-Americans. But I think adding in these players from programs that are so used to, like, going deep in the tournament and having so much success, like Getzinger was at Kentucky or like Villanovic was at Penn State, it kind of helps you just have this different mindset of like, we need to go, we know how to do it, and here's a path to get there. I don't know. I mean, regardless of whether Creighton gets a top 4 seed, which I would be shocked if they did, unless people start losing. I would love to see this team make it all the way to the semifinals. I mean, they deserve it.
We can have this. There's a few teams out there that only their fan base roots for them. Okay, like nobody roots for Nebraska except Nebraska fans.
Yeah.
Texas, but Texas fans. But
Yeah.
we all be rooting for Creighton.
Everyone roots for Creighton. They're America's team. It's like, again, it's like San Diego from what was that, 2022.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to root for them because, one, they're not really playing any of the teams that you probably like. And 2, they're so lovable and their coach is freaking awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Creighton is home this weekend for Seton Hall and Georgetown with 2 more after that in the regular season. Dayton finishes the A10 regular season at St. Louis with back-to-back matches. But let me give you 4 leagues where it's nuts. In the CAA, the Coastal Athletic Association, Towson, Delaware, Charleston, and Hofstra are all 9-3.
Ooh.
4 teams, and something's got to give because Hofstra goes to Towson for 2. The other teams are not playing each other. In the Big West, Cal Poly, Hawaii, UC Davis, and UC San Diego are all 10-4, and Long Beach State is 9-5, a game back. So 5 teams right there.
Fun.
UC San Diego goes to Long Beach on Tuesday, and then Hawaii is home for Long Beach on Friday and UC San Diego on Saturday. So something, will shake out there. In the Big Sky, Northern Colorado is 10-2, and Idaho State, Sacramento State, and Weber State are all 9-3. Northern Colorado goes to Idaho State on Thursday. And then in the Ohio Valley Conference, Southeast Missouri State is 12-2. Lindenwood is second at 11-3. And Southeast Missouri goes to Lindenwood Thursday and Friday. Mid-major, great stuff. Great
This is
stuff.
good stuff. But you know what's crazy about all these schedules and all of that is like it doesn't matter because they have to play a conference tournament and that's the only team that's gonna get a
Right,
bid.
right. All right. They're going to be one and done no matter what,
Yeah,
And yeah. So
the
you made
bummer.
up a schedule. I made up a schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got let's see, I got one before you, I think. No, I just broke it down by league. In the ACC, Florida State has got the tough one. They play at Pitt and at SMU Friday,
Yep.
Sunday, and this is like a last gasp opportunity for Florida State to get into the mix.
Yeah.
Um, good wins for SMU last week. In the Big 12, TCU is at Kansas on Wednesday, and then Baylor at Kansas on Saturday.
Yep.
And did you have any others on the Big 12?
We got more ACC ones. Miami's also at SMU and at Pitt, and the Pitt match might not mean a lot because Pitt will probably handle them. But again, SMU hosts Miami and Florida State. Those could be two really big matches that honestly SMU has to win.
Mhm.
Then UNC is at Louisville, which kind of interested me. Obviously, UNC's kind of been tracking upwards for the most part. I'd be interested to see, Louisville, how they do and can they just, I mean, again, this is a team that needs to handle UNC to really show that they deserve a top four seed.
Um, Miami gets out of that junior high school gym they play in with the rafters like at 22 feet.
Yeah.
And, you know, uh, what was a match I watched last week? I wanted to watch my buddy Brandon Rosenthal coach Lipscomb, and they were playing at Central Arkansas. And the
Okay.
gym at Central Arkansas is so small that the camera at mid-court could not see the whole court. So the
Oh
camera
no.
is moving back and forth like this. I was getting dizzy watching.
Oh, that's the worst.
Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal. Big Ten, Minnesota, Nebraska, and
Yeah,
I
I
certainly
got
expect
that one.
Nebraska to sweep, but a chance for Minnesota to upset the apple cart.
I
Uh,
mean, you never know. I mean, obviously Nebraska's playing lights out right now, but again, Minnesota's so hot and cold. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see them come out and, get the first set handily and then probably get crushed in next three. But I mean, I don't know. They've
what
got
the
a nice
one thing that
ceiling.
hasn't happened yet in among all these very, very top teams is we've hit that point in the year. And God, I almost feel terrible saying this, but but it's just part of the reality of it. We haven't had any major injuries or major illnesses,
Oh, what are we doing? What are we doing right now?
but it happens. It just
I
does. It's
know just
sports.
this
Uh,
this
that
is
okay. All
nothing.
right. And I'm not, it's just, I'm never surprised for that stuff. Okay. But
Yeah. Okay. Well,
okay.
also on Thursday, anyway, now that's out of there.
Wisconsin at USC.
Wisconsin at USC. And I mean, this is their West Coast trip, which is coming at probably the worst possible time, going out to USC, going out to UCLA. That's a trip that no one wants to make. And it's coming at a time where you've got midterms, you're tired, it's the end of the season.
To my
So
point about before, in the illnesses, kids get sick now, and
totally.
yeah, yeah. And then yeah, Oregon is at USC on Sunday, and it's a big RPI game for both.
Definitely. I think another one just to watch, Illinois at Penn State. I think Illinois has been like really sneakily in there, but they're 26 in the RPI right now. They're doing well. They got a win over USC last week, which was their first ranked win of the season. They're hanging in there, obviously, to easily make the tournament, but I think maybe to get one or two upsets, which would be huge. So Penn State again coming off a really bad loss to Wisconsin. I don't know. Illinois could sneak in there.
Illinois is playing well. And
Yeah,
the
and then
SEC,
Illinois at Purdue on Sunday, which I'm on that one. And sneaky is actually probably going to be a really good match.
the only big SEC match of the week is Florida at Missouri on Friday,
Yeah.
but that is a very big match because Missouri
Yeah.
is the hottest team in the league, and Florida's been playing really well the last couple of weeks and is right in the mix. That race is real tight as well in the SEC.
Yeah. Well, it's fun too. I mean, there's so many when you look across the board between the SEC has 11 teams in the top 70, and normally you need to be in that 60 range to make the tournament, but I'm extending it to 70 just because those are the teams that still have a chance. So SEC has 11 teams in the top 70. Big Ten has 11 teams in the top 70. ACC has 10 in the top 50, and then Big 12 has 7 in the top 70. So I think, it's just crazy to look across the board of how good these conferences are and how much these games at the end of the season really matter because this is when RPI really comes into play and those teams between the 40 and 60 mark, like this is make or break for them.
To the point about the SEC, Kentucky's in first place at 10-2. Missouri's at 9-2. Kentucky's won 7 in a row. Missouri's won 9 in a row. Florida's at 9-3, won 7 in a row, and Texas is 8-3. Big drop off after that. And I am sorry, I just don't understand how all those SEC teams after Texas have the RPI that they do, because they
I
just.
know.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
nothing against the SEC and nothing against these teams. They just don't have the goods, and yet
Yeah,
they're
I mean,
gonna
I
have
think I totally agree. I think Florida, yes. Texas A&M, I would say yes, but Oklahoma at 34, Tennessee at 36, Arkansas 38, Auburn 42. Like these, I agree. I've seen
they
Texas
don't even have winning
A&M.
records. Ole Miss, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, and they
South
put
Carolina has
South.
little boots.
Wait, this is great. The SEC has Vanderbilt in the standings at 0-0-0-0 overall. They start next year. What are you doing?
Oh gosh. I mean,
Geez.
there's a lot of teams. I mean, they have between 30 and 60. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 6 teams between 30 and 50. Like that's ridiculous.
Vanderbilt 0-0. I'm sorry. Um,
Like, how is
so
Ole Miss and South Carolina in the top 50? What are we doing?
um,
I don't know.
so Marblehead High School did go to the state tournament last week. We haven't. So they played in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. It took about an hour and 50 minutes to get there on the way down. It's down near New Bedford, Massachusetts. And most importantly to me is that Sydney Farris played well. She had a great match.
Oh,
Finishes the tournament, finishes the season strong. But the key word where was finishes, because the Magicians went down 21-6 in the first
that's their
game.
mascot, the Magicians.
Magicians, and
That's
they
kind of
lost.
sick.
Yeah, and well, the next town over, it's Salem Witches, the Salem Witches
Oh,
volleyball.
that's so
So
I love it.
Marblehead loses the first set 25-10, goes
Oh,
up 22-15 in the second, and loses 26-24, and
no.
goes up 21-15 in the third and loses 25-21.
Oh, that is brutal.
Oh, it's bad. When number 11 came back around on the front row in both of those last 2 sets, it was over. They had no answers. But nonetheless, it was really fun for us to be able to
Oh.
be a part of that season.
Well,
Uh,
I'm so happy that you get to go to all these matches now that you're around the area. That makes me
yeah.
happy.
Well, I've got before we ask where you go next, I'm in Salt Lake and making a volleyball trip, but tomorrow I'm going to get to go watch Love Salt Lake practice in the morning, and then Utah practice in the afternoon.
Oh, fun.
And then I head out Wednesday for more volleyball points unknown. Where do you go this week?
I'm back in Nebraska on Thursday. I haven't been there in like a month and a half. I miss Lincoln.
When you walk into the hotel, it's like Norm and Cheers.
Oh, they're
Holy.
my people. I know all the front desk people. It's great. I have Wisconsin, or sorry, my gosh, Minnesota at Nebraska on Thursday, and then Illinois at Purdue on Sunday.
And that's always fun at Purdue. Both matches should be. They both could be great matches.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'm due for one. Lee, I have had so many sweeps and so many boring matches over the last few weeks. Like, I need something good. I need an exciting match. I would love to call all 5 setters from here on out.
She is the inimitable Emily Ehman, and we thank you for watching what we have called 900 square feet. As we say to the kids in club volleyball, there's 900 square feet over there. Please hit one of them.